Sounds good. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sigrid Ladores, and I am an associate professor at the School of Nursing here at University of Alabama at Birmingham. And I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Many of the names on the screen is familiar to me. So it's so good to see all of you. And again, honored to be invited as a guest. I straddle both worlds, I'd like to say. I am an educator, clinician, and researcher specific to the work I do in CF, but also more importantly and more interestingly, I'd like to say that I know CF from kind of the insider perspective, being the spouse of a man who had CF. So many of you may know my husband. We're an open book. He was 49 years old, recently passed away in June. And he was diagnosed with CF at birth. So we went through the ups and downs of CF in our 22 years of marriage. But we lived a full life. He lived a full life. And so certainly I honor his legacy by continuing to do the work that I do in CF and giving back to the community that was so near and dear to his heart. And this is how I know a few folks like Tori and Alicia. They probably can share some really fun stories about my husband. Some maybe when we're not being recorded. But again, I'm honored to be here and very pleased that along with me, I have two of my PhD students doing research in CF. So I would like Brittany Woods and Leslie Pitts to introduce themselves next.
Hey everyone, I'm Brittany Woods, and I am Dr. Ladores's PhD student. My focus is primarily on infertility and mental health, but I started working with her because of the sexual and reproductive health side, and I have really enjoyed kind of getting immersed into the community of CF patients, because it really and truly is a community. I have really grown to love all of the individuals that I have met that have cystic fibrosis, men and women alike, and it's been a really good journey so far. So I really appreciate the chance to join you guys today. I'm in my last year of PhD school, hopefully, hopefully to finish this summer. So this is a great opportunity, and I just really thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. And this has been a fun study to work on so far. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation, and hopefully everybody gets to learn something new. And I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Thanks. So my name is Leslie Pitts. I am a dual DNP PhD student at the School of Nursing. I'm the new kid on the block. And thankfully, Dr. Ladores has taken me under her wing, and Brittany as well, to show me the ropes. But this study has been a lot of fun for me to get involved in and get to know some of the individuals in the cystic fibrosis community. I worked as a nurse practitioner in pediatric endocrinology for 12 years before pursuing this education, and had some interactions with cystic fibrosis related diabetes in that context. So it's been very enjoyable to get to know other aspects of this disorder and the individuals that thrive with it. So thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you, Leslie. Do we go right into sharing our slides, Georgia? Brittany, you have our slides, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, great.
Okay. So you guys will give me just a second. Here we go. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. We can get everything. There we go. One click at a time. We'll get there.
Our computers are tired as well. All right, so we will begin our official presentation. We each have designated slides that we will cover. And again, I'm very pleased to have with me Brittany and Leslie because what a great team effort to launch the study, collect some incredible data. And what we're sharing with you today is actually hot off the presses because we have not shared the results of the study with anyone yet. We haven't written an abstract yet. We haven't compiled a sentence yet, except for what we're going to share with you during this presentation. So you guys get to hear about it first. All right, so the title of our talk will be about using Hygge. Go back. Using Hygge to promote wellness and coping with CF. And so I've listed here my co-authors and collaborators. So there's myself, and then a lovely woman named Morgan Poland, who you may or may not know. She is very active in the CF community, and she was really the catalyst to this project. And I'll tell you a little bit more about her in the next couple of slides. And of course, there's Brittany and Leslie. So again, thank you for inviting us. Next slide. We want to disclose that this study was funded by the Alabama Friends of Cystic Fibrosis, and we do not have any conflicts of interest to disclose related to this presentation. So our main objective for this talk is to increase the understanding of how Hygge can be used to promote wellness and coping with cystic fibrosis. And what I'd like to emphasize is that this really transcends one particular chronic illness like CF. Anything that you hear today might be applicable to anyone, really, if they're trying to cultivate that sense of wellness and to cope with some struggles, regardless of what that might be, chronic illness or not. And so it transcends a lot of things. And so we're hoping that you will find one or two nuggets of useful information that you can then apply to promote your own health and wellness. So our agenda is pretty simple. We've done our brief introductions. We will do a little bit more with just myself and Morgan, who again inspired the study. We'll go over some preliminary results of the study that we're doing right now, and then open it up to discussions and question and answer. And I know that you'll be doing some breakout rooms as well. All right, so brief introductions for me. I shared a little bit about my background. I have been a pediatric nurse for a little over 25 years. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner and a clinical nurse specialist. Have been teaching at the university level for 19 years and then researcher once I've received my PhD in the late 2013. So I've been doing this for about 9 years. I've been an advocate and a volunteer in several professional organizations, like the Philippine Nurse Association of America, and then Sunny Shore Sea Camp, which is a camp for children and adults with CF. And of course, I always say more interestingly about me is that I was Andrew's wife for 22 years, and we have 2 sons, ages 14 and 6, and Andrew passed away in June 2022. But again, doing this talk really reignited my passion to keep doing what I'm doing and still remain connected and be passionate about the work that I do to hopefully improve the well-being of those with cystic fibrosis and their families. Next slide. So my inspiration, I just want to show you in photos a few things that keep me going. So the first one here on the very left is the Blow Away CF. It's a 5K fundraising event hosted here by our local chapter of CF Foundation here in Alabama. And you can see I'm the one with the glasses, and there's a very grumpy toddler in front of me. That's little Cooper, because it was freezing. Alabama's supposed to be in the south, but on this day, I think it was 30 degrees when we did the 5K. So you would not be surprised to learn that we were dead last, finishing that 5K. We barely walked the thing. There was a lot of stopping and crying and cajoling and bribing to get him to just walk the rest of the way. The other folks with me are pediatric nurses and colleagues of mine. The middle one is Lynn Nichols, and also very active with the CF chapter here in Birmingham, and was instrumental actually in getting me funding to support the work that we wanted to do for CF Hygge. And then Dr. Leanne Bray is also another collaborator. She is an assistant professor at the University of Alabama School of Nursing, and that's her niece, also grumpy in the stroller. So we had really two not so happy children that we dragged out of their comfy and warm comforters and into 30-degree weather to do this 5K. But hey, you have to do what you have to do to raise funds and awareness. And then the middle picture is an old picture because you can see that my 14-year-old right now towers over me. He's 6'1" or 6'2" at this point. So that's an old picture, and he will probably tell me and get mad at me because that's so, quote, cringy. When you're 14 and you look back at your old photos, they're all cringy, according to him. And then there's little Cooper. He still smiles like that and is obsessed with bow ties. And then the last picture on the right was Andrew, a month after he received his lung transplant. I love to show this picture because I'm also an advocate and a vocal proponent for organ donation. Anytime someone wants me to talk about organ donation, I say yes. So this is Andrew holding his own lungs a month after transplant. And people, when they see this, there's a lot of reactions. It's disbelief that that's really his lungs. Andrew would like to say that they look like charred chicken. And they kind of do. We had a chance to get reacquainted with his old lungs because we donated his lungs to research at the University of Florida. So we were able to touch it, feel it, squeeze the bronchioles, and out comes lots of not so pleasant things, and marvel that he was a walking miracle, and that organ donation definitely saves lives. Next slide. Just my program of research to share with you some of the things that I've been fortunate to do. And in fact, I've had a chance to work on some things with Sandy, Dr. Sufyan, on some of the women's health stuff. So again, I've been lucky to be able to do what I like to do personally, but also align it with within my professional career as a nurse and as a researcher. So my scholarship has really been focused on CF since I graduated with my PhD. And the overarching theme is to really do what I can in some small ways to improve the quality of life of people with CF. And I've listed here some things that I've done in collaboration with many others, equally passionate, really smart people, clinicians and researchers and community members who do what they do well. So I've published a couple of papers, presented, and I have to tell you that, yes, while professional conferences are a requirement for my job, what gives me the most pleasure is actually engaging with people from the community, from the CF community directly. And Leslie and Brittany has heard me say this many times. They probably are rolling their eyes. I just can't see them very well. But they've heard me say that while publications and conference presentations are great, you need to be able to bring back your findings, your research back to the people who could benefit the most, and that's the people affected by CF. And so when this invitation came through, I said yes right away. And we've had to reschedule a few times, but here we are. I do believe that the folks who need to hear about the newest and greatest things in CF are not necessarily just the clinicians and researchers in the room, but it's the people who are affected by the chronic illness. Next slide. And I'll do a little bit of intro on Morgan because, again, she serves as our inspiration for this study. Without Morgan, I would not have known about the word Hygge, let alone how to pronounce the word Hygge. I stumbled a few times before she corrected me on how to say it properly. So I'd like to introduce to you Morgan. She's not able to join us today because of other commitments, but she's really a huge part of the study and a full partner. And so Morgan, she's a 30-year-old woman with CF. She has a 3-year-old daughter and she's a wife. And she is very active in the CF community. She created the Moms with CF and CF Family Life Facebook groups. She also has an Instagram account, and she was a former volunteer, crisis counselor at a crisis text line. She also is the admin for Trikafta Moms. She's very active physically as well. She's very athletic. She was a cyclist, was a vocal patient advocate, and utilizes research like you would not believe. She'll email me and ask me to print out articles and send to her because, you know, she doesn't have the free access as a person without a university library pass. So I would be happy to send her some articles that she would devour. But at the end of the day, she really is our inspiration and the catalyst to this project. And just a few pictures that Morgan shared with us. This is common to probably those folks on this call, balancing life, right, while taking a neb. Thankfully, we have portable nebulizers now. You're not stuck inside the house. You can take your treatments anywhere you go. And so she lives a very full life. And CF is just a piece of her life, and she doesn't let it control her or her family's ability to enjoy life.
So I'm going to give you guys just a quick overview of this project that we're working on. So first of all, the question comes up, you know, a lot of people ask, what is Hygge? Really, I mean, you hear this word, but what is it? So it's actually derived from a Norwegian word that means well-being. There's no strict English translation for it, but it's just kind of a general translation that means well-being. It actually originates from this Old Norse term, which is Hygge, which is a mindset that's really focused on finding happiness in just everyday ordinary things. You know, we tend to look towards some, you know, other things to find happiness sometimes, like shopping, you know, guilty, you know, and other things, but sometimes it really is just the very ordinary things in life that can bring you happiness. So really the key principles of this are just like that acceptance of conditions that are out of your control. Really, you know, that community engagement, sitting with others, you know, sitting around a campfire and talking to people, or, you know, having a group of friends over and eating a good meal, just that community engagement where you actually get to sit and talk to others that, you know, not through an internet or a phone or, you know, on social media, but actually face-to-face communal engagement. You know, unfortunately and fortunately in this day and age, we do also have that community engagement that we can obtain through social media and stuff like that, which is still great, but it's definitely not a replacement for that, you know, in-person engagement. That balance, you know, that life-work balance, the chronic illness and life balance. There's just finding a balance in everything. Really listening to one's body. What do you actually need? Not what do you think you need, but listening to your body and finding out really what do you need. Appreciation for nature. A lot of people really find that very calming. It's kind of like just this sense of calm, stepping outside and taking in, again, the simple things that we take for granted every day. And really overall, that creating an environment of coziness and comfort to really elicit those feelings of wellness and contentment. I think that's probably one phrase that I think really embodies this whole thing, is just creating that environment, whether it's there or not. You create that environment of coziness and comfort to make you, you know, just feel that balance. So the overview of this project. So, you know, we talk about this Hygge, and you hear it a lot in popular social media and stuff these days, but we still don't really know a whole lot about it in the context of chronic illnesses and using it to cope with chronic illnesses, especially in things like cystic fibrosis. And, as many of you on this call here know today, there's no longer a disease of childhood. Individuals with cystic fibrosis are living much longer, much fuller lives. And over half of the current patient demographics are adults that have cystic fibrosis, which is fantastic. But the downside of this is that most individuals with CF do spend hours a day, anywhere between 2 and 4, sometimes more, on maintenance therapies to help prevent lung infections, promote that food absorption, and really just manage the complex system issues that result from CF. So the goal of this study was really just to fill that gap in knowledge of how can Hygge be used to promote wellness in chronic illnesses, specifically with cystic fibrosis, but really hopefully generalizing to any to help manage that chronic progressive disease. So how did we kind of accomplish this, or how are we accomplishing this, since we've completed, but not totally completed. But this is kind of how we did this. So we used what they call qualitative research, which is just where you are talking to people, you're interviewing people. So we used this approach to really explore how individuals with CF use Hygge to promote health and coping. So we interviewed 15 adults with CF, and then we audio recorded these telephone interviews to create these transcripts. So all of them will be kind of transcribed into text data. So we'll kind of read through them, and then we'll extract these themes that we see over the course of all of these interviews. And Leslie's going to kind of talk about what those preliminary results are so far here in a little bit. And then our participants are going to be compensated with what we considered a Hygge box, which is a kind of set of curated items that really embody and foster the continued use of Hygge in these participants for their health and wellness. And I'll show you an example of some of these boxes here in just a second. But, we just kind of explore everything for these common themes and see what is it that individuals consider Hygge, how are they using it in their lives, and how can others use it in their lives to help cope with and help promote wellness in individuals with cystic fibrosis. So this is just an example of some of the boxes that we have seen put together. And so we put together something very similar, a curated box of Hygge items, which we have put together like a blanket and cups and candles and teas, things that just kind of bring you that sense of balance, that sense of wellness, kind of bring you back down to earth and let you sit and appreciate, or sit outside and appreciate, just that calm and kind of that restoration to kind of balance out everything and just come back down and enjoy those simple things that we sometimes take for granted. So I'm going to turn it over to Leslie, and she's going to kind of go over these preliminary results that we have gotten from these interviews.
Thank you, Brittany. So it is, again, just a pleasure to talk with you all today. This is an honor as a PhD student, but this whole study did not feel like work to me. It was so much fun to get to speak with 15 wonderful people with cystic fibrosis and talk about what makes them happy. So we're going to kind of explore what we have found. All right, you can go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So
I think there's a lag. It may take a second.
Gotcha.
It's
okay.
There.
All right. So like I said, we had 15 participants. You can see from this demographic information, primarily we spoke with females. We did try to recruit more males, but we had some difficulties with that. But the 2 men that I did get to speak with were wonderful and very informative. Our average age was around 36 years, and we had a range from 29 to 57. And you can see the split as far as at what age people were diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. Our biggest groups were as infants, and again in that 1 to 10 year stretch, but there were some individuals that were several decades old before being diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And then primarily our participants were married. You can go to the next slide. I think it's, oh, sorry. I think it's really important, Brittany will go back a slide, but our split was pretty well represented as far as the locations of our participants. And this is important because when we think of Hygge practices, there's this idea of Hygge in winter and fall, and we think of like warm, cozy things with Hygge, but there were several participants that live in warmer climates. And so it was fun to kind of ask about how do you do Hygge when it's hot outside and when it's sunny, and that was fun to explore those ideas as well. The majority of our participants are taking Trikafta, and the majority reported their health as being good or very good. And you can see the most recent FEV1 had a range of 38 to 101. So this question, we asked our participants about their cystic fibrosis related complications, and I thought it was very important to note that anxiety was one of the highest complications that people reported related to their cystic fibrosis. It was right up there with sinus disease and asthma. And I think this is important as you go into the next slide, Brittany. You'll see that anxiety and depression were actually very common experiences for individuals with cystic fibrosis in our study, with 73% of our participants reporting anxiety and 47 reporting having experienced depression related directly to their cystic fibrosis. But on the good side, our participants, every one of them reported that practicing Hygge improved their mental health and emotional well-being, and they all related back that absolutely it improves quality of life to have these practices built into your routine. And there's a few quotes there. One woman individual said, "Before I knew about Hygge, I felt hopeless." And then another person said, "Living with Hygge life helps me to deal with things more positively with coping. It's an immediate stress relief." And so I think we all can gain from that. Who doesn't want stress relief? So, all right, Brittany, you can go to the next. So what does Hygge mean for persons with CF? When we looked over the interviews, we kind of have these two main themes that we're seeing repeated in each of the interviews. One being purposeful mindset, and one being a curated environment. And underneath each of those themes, there's a few sub-themes that we'll kind of unpack. One, under purposeful mindset, is just this concept of being present in the moment and being mindful of how your body feels and what your body needs, and the things that are around you that bring you joy and peace. And then everyone said that Hygge is a personal experience. Even though there are things and pieces related to Hygge practice that can be universal, you have to find what personally brings you joy. And then in regards to the environment, we're going to talk a little bit about the different activities that people enjoy and the requirements of those activities. You can go to the next slide, Brittany. Okay, so underneath a purposeful mindset, again, being present, being in the moment, and being mindful of what brings you joy and what you are feeling in a certain moment became really important to note. And there's a couple quotes there about when you can be present, you're enjoying what you're doing and not focusing on the hard stuff, and just appreciating simple things in life. And so it kind of goes back to what Brittany was saying about Hygge and the ordinary things in life and finding joy in those, whether that be a walk outside or having coffee in the morning, or maybe having a cozy spot where you have to do your treatments. Just being mindful of what makes you feel better and incorporating that into your everyday. And then the personal aspects, many people talked about the balance of the less pleasant things in life and the pleasantries that Hygge practices can bring, and how that can help with coping and stress management. And some of the quotes in this section was, Hygge is all about lifestyle and balance, and the mental reset takes you out of what you're dealing with. And Hygge is knowing what you do to make yourself feel good. So just taking that personal inventory of, when I'm not feeling well, what is it about my situation that I can change? Because we all know there's things we can't change in certain situations, but just changing those little things that you can, maybe can bring some balance and joy into a mundane situation. Brittany, you can go to the next slide. And then curated environment is our other theme. And underneath this, we have the sub-themes of activities and requirements. Under activities, a lot of people mentioned nature and the seasons and just enjoying that seasonality and the changes in the seasons and spending time in nature and the sunshine and taking walks when you can and things like that, that just sounded really lovely. And then the surroundings inside the home became important too, the ambiance and coziness of your surrounding. And several mentioned that while taking their treatments, they would do that in a specific place that made them feel better, because they would be stuck there. So why not make it a joyful place, or do something during that time, like journaling, that would help. And then requirements of Hygge. One thing that was a surprise to me that came up, and it shouldn't have been a surprise, but it was, is that you have to prioritize these times, and you have to remind yourself why it is important and set aside time for yourself in these practices. And so a few quotes that I liked in regards to the environment were making surroundings calmer, having a space that makes you feel good. I love this one. Use the fancy dishes every day. Why not? You know, why save that for some special occasion? If you feel like being fancy, be fancy. Hygge doesn't require anything special. Appreciating the seasons. This came up several times, that it's something that you can do no matter what your health is. So several people mentioned even during hospitalizations, changing their environment in some way, or practicing art or journaling in those situations. And so that was really nice to hear. I think even in that kind of environment, you can find a way to practice Hygge. And we'll talk about this in the next slide, but it only takes 5 minutes. So it's doesn't have to be some huge thing. Maybe it's just go sit outside for a few minutes in the sunshine and appreciate the day. And that can bring comfort to your day and reset your mindset. All right, next slide, Brittany. All right, so a few examples of Hygge activities: spending time in nature, taking a bubble bath with some like nice bath salts, cozying up with a good book, and how that can be an escape sometimes. Soft blankets, warm socks, lighting candles, enjoying a cup of tea or coffee, which I said, like, this study has made me drink more tea and coffee. But being active. So there's lots of ways that our participants talked about how they stay active in whatever capacity that they can, and how that brings joy to their days. Comforting sounds. A lot of individuals mentioned the sound of rain or using music to change their mindset. Gardening, sharing a meal with loved ones, and gratitude journaling, I thought were all good examples of how Hygge can be used in a practical day-to-day sense. Okay, next slide, Brittany. Okay, and these are just a couple of my little takeaways from what I've looked at so far. Is that Hygge doesn't require a lot of extra things, money, or planning, and even 5 minutes of finding Hygge in your day can be comforting. And it can be a part of your life regardless of your health status. And I think it's so important. Everyone mentioned that hearing from others what brought them comfort and what brought them joy and peace and helped them to cope is how they came to know about Hygge and practice Hygge. So sharing those comments with other individuals that you know maybe are going through a tough time is so important. And you might not think that they want to hear it, but it actually seems to be very helpful. So talking about the hard stuff and how you deal with the hard stuff is important. And then just seeking out coping mechanisms and taking time to take care of yourself. Thank you. All right, Brittany.
So if Hygge were a picture, so this is really neat. Every season and holiday, Morgan asked her group of mothers with CF to submit a photo of what represents their current life. So a really large collection of photos came in. I think she said somewhere between 20 and 50, so it's quite a bit. And there was always kind of this recurring theme. So in the summer, moms were outdoors. They were in the sprinklers, gardens, pools, beaches, eating fresh fruit, wearing summer accessories. They're at family gatherings, and really allowing that season to complement their lives. And this really is Hygge. So this is how they identify with their life, or at least how they want to identify in life. So the goal is really not to just have another tomorrow or another birthday. It really is to thrive. So these are some of the pictures. And as you can see, you can see the different seasons very easily here. You got the pools and the beaches, you got Easter eggs, pizza, and then the Christmas stuff and the good desserts, just spending time with family. And all of these represent, different ways that everybody finds just that peace and comfort in everyday life. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant to practice Hygge. That is the great part about it. It's very, like Leslie said, it's a very individual, personal experience. It only takes a couple minutes a day. It could be as simple as sitting in a pool with your kids, flying a kite, eating really good food, because who doesn't love really good food? Enjoying that cup of coffee in the morning, or if you're, like me, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're probably having a second cup, go sit outside, or, just take a couple of minutes and just be there, listen to your body, be calm, just take in a couple of minutes of that calm and let it restore you. And it really can make a big difference. So some of the just kind of overall implications for this study, and really the innovation looking at the study, is, as far as we know, this is the first study that actually explores how individuals with CF use Hygge, which is really fun. And even better is that we had an amazing key stakeholder from the CF community that actually helped to guide the development and implementation. So, we had patients with CF at the core of every bit of this. She helped with the development of this, the design of it, the recruitment of it, and it was fantastic. And this really addresses the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation mission to help improve quality of life for those with CF. And that's really what our ultimate goal is. And Hygge really outlines those simple self-care behaviors that can make a positive impact and really reduce stress during uncertain times, using very simple things that we just kind of take for granted in life. You drink your coffee quickly in the mornings, maybe because you're in a rush, maybe take 5 extra minutes and just sit down and enjoy it. And don't think about the things you have to do for the day. Just sit and just be with your coffee, enjoy the smell of it, enjoy just sitting there and being calm for a few minutes. But really this goal of this was to raise awareness about the benefits of Hygge for those with and without health conditions. You don't have to have a chronic condition to use this, but hopefully it does help. And the goal is to improve the physical, emotional, and mental health. We know, especially during this time, going through a pandemic and just the hustle and bustle of what is the norm of these days. You know, everybody's trying to pack as much as they can into their schedule, be as productive as possible. Well, you know, it's not always best for your physical, emotional, mental health. Sometimes you just need those couple of minutes to just sit and just be there, or walk outside and just enjoy, you know, a breeze on your face or the sun on your face. Or if you're like me and you like snow, go romp around in the snow for a few minutes, just stand there. It doesn't matter. You know, being in Alabama, we don't get that very often. So when I can, I get to it. But, you know, everybody has their own thing and it doesn't take a lot. It's just, you know, just that sense of calm and figuring out what can you do to find that calm. Even like Leslie said, you know, within your breathing treatments, take a couple of minutes, read a book. If you like reading a book, read a book while you're doing a breathing treatment, or just sit there and just, you know, listen to some music, zone out. It's just, there's all different things that you can do. And I hope that you guys found, you know, something that you can relate to within some of the stuff that Leslie talked about. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ladores, who's going to wrap us up.
I think you wrapped this up beautifully, Brittany. There's nothing more I can say. There's nothing else to say. I hope that this presentation was helpful to you. There's some nice comments in the chat box saying that for most of you, you're probably already doing Hygge stuff. You just didn't know that that was the word that claimed all of those feelings of coziness and comfort. At least from me, I was like, oh, I was already doing many of these things. But if you're intentional about it, you know more about it. One of the first things that I did when Leslie started the PhD DNP program was I gave her the Hygge book. And she loved it so much, she bought it for her friends and her family. And so I think it's something easy and so incredibly beneficial for us all, for all of us to do. So I want to thank you for inviting us. I'm super proud of my team. Leslie and Brittany, I give them all the kudos because I've never collected data so quickly in my years of doing this kind of research. Within 3 weeks, they have collected the data and my head was spinning because they were scheduling interviews left and right. It's because the folks in the CF community really wanted to share their experiences related to Hygge. And it was so easy. And, you know, even Leslie said, wait, is this supposed to, you know, like really be hard? She's like, I feel guilty, like I'm having fun doing research. So it's really been an honor to work with the two of them, but also the community members who opened up to them and share their lives with them. So on this note, I want to stop here and see if you guys have any questions, but we are right on time with finishing. Look at us.